Okay, so we're around 90 minutes into the real-time market hours on Monday, the 4th of August. We've got PLTR, Planetier, that posts earnings after the close tonight. So I thought we'd take a deeper look at Planetier, PLTR. It's on our short-term focus list here. It's also been on our main focus list for quite some time. This is the weekly chart. And you can see here was the IPO, very, very typical of what you see on an IPO. You get an initial rise, then a pullback that often takes out the IPO price. And you can see here that break below the IPO price was effectively a false breakdown. We came pretty much straight back through it. And then you look for the first 5-wave move. If the stock and company are any good, they should give you a directional impulse if you're lucky, and that's precisely what we seem to be seeing here with PLTR. Now this is a weekly chart. Look at that, and through all this you got a squeeze that then fired long. CRSI, there was your buy signal, bang, thank you very much, and there's your Mansfield, safe to own from here. So far so good. Now 5 up to here for one shallow pullback. And you can see that we're now at the 2.0 extension. But this looks to me, more likely than not, this is an extension of this wave 3 off the low. There is an alternative, and it's worth considering, which I'll show you why shortly, which is the 3's there. That was the 4, this 4, and we're actually in the final 5th wave up. But either way, we should see 237 to 238 in this stock. It's a question really of how we get there. Bit of caution, weekly momentum's still on track. CRSI is drifting in the middle. Mansfield says hold, but the trender is diverging here. And we've only got a consensus of 4 to the upside now on the weekly time frame. Now, cycles, this is the concern. The main weekly composite cycle is very, very close to the top, after which it's expecting a much, much bigger pullback. Now remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be a wave 1. We would then get an A, B, C for a 2 back that would be a retrace against the entire move up off its all-time low. As and when we see that, which we will, that is, to my mind, an absolute gift of a buying opportunity in PLTR, but that's a little way off as yet. The main dilemma here is, are we finishing this 5th or this 3rd? Now, the cycles would argue very much that we're finishing the 5th wave. However, if I come down to the daily chart, there's an easy way of doing this. Whichever degree of 3 that is, this final move here looks to me to be a diagonal structure, because that initial thrust was an ABC and then a little 2 back. And if that's the case, we are at or nearing the top of the A wave of 3, and we're going to chop higher and end up at that 237.5 area. Again, caution, there was a sell signal here on the CRSI, followed by the buy signal, in common with many other stocks that we follow, coming off the April low. But look at this. This is hugely diverged and starting to roll over. We've actually got a consensus of 2 to the downside. But if I add the daily cycles in, it's suggesting we're going to bottom out in the next few days and see the next leg up in PLTR. And I suspect that's going to be this little zigzag up into the targets overall. So if we then come all the way down to an hourly chart and look at something a little bit more near term in terms of the expectations for this evening. So if this is a diagonal structure for the A wave of 3 in the final 5th wave up, then there's your A wave of the 5th. There's the B wave of the 5th, and this should be a 1, 2, 1, 2, and up we go. Target 171.71 to 177.75. So if we can break out above 161.50, which is where we've got the high at the moment, that's what we should see. but we would need to, 161.50 and follow through immediately above 162.37. The alternatives, the must hold, or the level that needs to hold for that to play out is 150.82. It's this B wave low. If we take that out, then we can have an A, B, and we get a C down. So the pattern remains intact for immediately higher, providing we remain above 145.12. If we take that out, it would indicate that we are already in the B wave back. And the pivot, the must hold level at all times here is 105.32 if we're going to see that higher level. I would suggest if we trade back below 117, then this stock is done. And we're going to be looking for a much better, a much bigger move down sooner rather than later. Now, next thing, let's look at the, excuse me, the relative rotation graph. So it's part of XLK. So I've done XLK versus SPY initially. You need to widen the basket of stocks you look at. It's not one of the top 10 in XLK by market cap, but it is one of the top 20. And if we look at it on a daily time frame to start with, there we can see PLTR right up in the top of the leading quadrant. But look, it's starting to come off and head towards the weakening. That's on a daily basis. If I look at it on a weekly basis, excuse me, then you can see that it's already over here in the weakening and it's starting to head across towards lagging. So early signs here that PLTR is topping out. There's a pattern to go a little higher, and I've given you the levels. Break the support levels I've given you, and then we're going to get the bigger pullback sooner rather than later. I suspect that, contrary to what I'm showing on the Elliott wave counts, that once we complete this last little diagonal, that may well be all of a 5-wave structure off the 8 all-time low, and therefore we're looking for a pullback thereafter in PLTR. So that remains to see what actually happens this evening. If you like these videos that we're putting out, please would you subscribe to the channel or hit the like button, preferably both. If any of you would like to take a bit of a deeper look at what we do, then if you follow the links below this video, you'll find an offer for a 7-day free trial to our live trading room.